I'll create a new science fiction story based on the theme you provided. Let me start by outlining the parts, and then I'll write the first part with completely different characters than those you mentioned. Story outline. Part 1. First Contact. A former military pilot turned interstellar courier discovers an alien stowaway on his ship who claims to know him from a different timeline. As they navigate through dangerous space, they must outrun mysterious pursuers while uncovering the truth about a powerful artifact that could reshape reality. Part 2. The Memory Anchor. The courier and the alien woman travel to the edges of known space to find a way to stabilize the reality-altering artifact. They encounter beings who exist outside normal time and must face a difficult choice: preserve the current reality or allow it to be rewritten according to the artifact's original purpose. Now, let me write Part 1 for you. Part 1. First Contact. The cargo bay of the distant horizon smelled like burnt circuitry and cheap synthetic coffee. Pilot Dominic Nash wiped grease from his hands onto his already stained jumpsuit and cursed at the malfunctioning power coupling. Another repair that would eat into his already thin profit margin. System diagnostic complete. 3 modules require immediate attention, announced the ship's AI in its monotonous voice. Tell me something I don't know, Vera, Dominic muttered, tossing a wrench into his toolkit. There is an unauthorized life form in storage compartment 7. Dominic froze. What kind of life form? Unknown classification. Bipedal. Approximate height, 1.8 meters. Currently immobile. Dominic grabbed his pulse pistol from its magnetic holster. It was old military issue, a relic from his service days in the frontier wars, but still reliable. He moved silently through the narrow corridors of his courier vessel, a habit from years of combat training that never quite left him. Storage Compartment 7 was technically a smuggler's hold, though Dominic preferred the term undocumented cargo space. It was shielded from standard scans, useful for transporting goods that station authorities might take an unhealthy interest in. The compartment door slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Dominic raised his pistol, finger hovering near the trigger. "I knew you'd find me eventually," came a melodic voice from the shadows. A figure stepped forward, illuminated by the corridor lights. She appeared humanoid but undeniably alien. Iridescent blue skin that seemed to shimmer like the surface of a calm ocean, elongated fingers with an extra joint, and eyes with vertical pupils that reflected light like a cat's. Her hair, if it could be called that, moved slightly as if suspended in water, despite the normal gravity. "Who are you?" Dominic demanded, pistol unwavering. "My name is Nix," she said, then added with unsettling certainty, "and in another timeline, you called me friend." Dominic's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Lady, I've never seen your species before, let alone you. Not in this timeline, no." Nix studied him with those unnerving eyes. "Your scar is different. Here it crosses your left eyebrow. In my timeline, it was on your right cheek." Dominic unconsciously touched the old wound, a parting gift from a Centauri blade during the Battle of Proxima. "You're insane." "Perhaps. But I found you across realities, which suggests I'm at least partially correct." Before Dominic could respond, the ship's emergency lights flashed red. "Warning," Vera announced. "Unknown vessel approaching. Weapon systems active." Dominic holstered his pistol and sprinted toward the cockpit, leaving Nix to follow or not. He had bigger problems. The view screen showed a sleek, obsidian craft closing rapidly. Its design was unlike anything in the military databases he'd borrowed from his last employers. "Evasive maneuvers, full thrust," he commanded, dropping into the pilot's seat. The distant horizon lurched as its engines screamed to life. The pursuing ship matched their course change with impossible precision. "They're the Echoes," Nick said, suddenly beside him in the co-pilot's seat. "Temporal enforcement. They're not after you, they're after what I'm carrying." "And what exactly is that?" Dominic asked through gritted teeth as he executed a dangerous spiral maneuver around a debris field. "The Chronos fragment, a piece of technology from a civilization that mastered timeline manipulation before destroying themselves." A blast from the pursuing ship grazed their shields, causing the lights to flicker. "Shields at 60%, Vera reported." "Can you outrun them?" Nix asked. Not in normal space. Dominic's fingers flew over the controls. But I know a few tricks. He pointed the ship toward a nearby nebula, a swirling mass of gas and cosmic dust that played havoc with sensors and navigation systems. It was a risky move, but they were out of options. They'll follow us, Nix warned. Counting on it, Dominic replied with a grim smile. The distant horizon plunged into the nebula, visibility immediately dropping to near zero. Dominic switched to manual controls, flying by instinct rather than instrumentation. Behind them, the pursuing ship hesitated before following. Hold on, Dominic warned as he cut main power, letting the ship drift silently through the cosmic cloud. The pursuing vessel swept past them, its sensors blinded by the nebula's interference. That won't fool them for long, Nix said. It doesn't need to. We just need a head start. Dominic reactivated the engines and set a course away from their previous trajectory. As they emerged from the nebula, the vastness of space opened before them, stars glittering like scattered diamonds against the void. You still haven't explained why you're on my ship or how you found me, Dominic said, setting the autopilot. Nix reached into a hidden pocket and withdrew a small device that pulsed with an inner light. It was roughly the size of a fist, crystalline in structure, with what looked like liquid energy swirling within. This is the Chronos fragment. In the wrong hands, it can reshape reality, erase entire timelines, or create new ones. She gazed at it with a mixture of reverence and fear. In my timeline, you helped me keep it safe. We were close. And what happened to that version of me? You died protecting this, she said simply. The echoes attacked our vessel near the Cygnus Rift. With your last breath, you activated the fragment, telling me to find you again. Dominic stared at her, searching for deception. And why would I do that? Because you believed in preserving free choice. The echoes don't want to destroy the fragment. They want to use it to create a single, unified timeline. One reality. Their reality. The ship's sensors pinged a warning. The pursuing vessel had found them again. We need to reach the drift, Nix said urgently. It's a place where timelines converge naturally. The fragment will be harder to trace there. The drift is a myth, Dominic countered. A spacer's tale. It's real. I can guide us there. Her eyes met his, challenging. You have to trust me. Trust was a luxury Dominic rarely afforded anyone since the war. But something about her story resonated, or perhaps it was just the desperation of their situation. Vera, prepare for jump to coordinates. He hesitated. 379 Mark 12-6-0-4, Nix supplied without hesitation. Dominic entered the coordinates, watching as the navigation system initially rejected them before reluctantly plotting a course. Warning, destination parameters unstable, Vera announced. Probability of successful transit, 57%. We've had worse odds, Dominic muttered, engaging the jump drive. The stars stretched into luminous streaks as the ship accelerated beyond conventional physics. Dominic felt the familiar disorientation of jump travel, but something was different this time, a strange doubling of perception, as if he was simultaneously experiencing multiple versions of the same moment. Side effect of proximity to the fragment during a jump, Nix explained, noticing his discomfort. You're glimpsing alternative views. As the jump concluded, the view screen revealed not the empty space Dominic expected, but a massive structure floating against a backdrop of swirling nebulae and twisted spacetime. It resembled a city built from impossible angles, parts of it seemingly existing out of phase with reality. Welcome to the drift, Nix said. The last neutral ground in the war for reality itself. Behind them, space rippled as their pursuers emerged from their own jump. And we've brought company, Dominic observed grimly. I hope your friends here are the welcoming type. They're not friends, Nix replied. But they respect the sanctity of the drift. Even the echoes won't violate it, at least not openly. As they approached the impossible structure, a transmission cut through the static. Unidentified vessel, you carry a forbidden artifact. Prepare to be boarded. Dominic looked at Nix, who had gone pale. I thought you said they wouldn't violate the drift? They shouldn't be able to. Something's wrong. She clutched the fragment protectively. The timeline is more damaged than I realized. Dominic's hand moved to his pistol. Well, I didn't survive the frontier wars by playing by the rules. Let's show these echoes that altering this timeline won't be as easy as they think. The memory anchor. The drift wasn't a place so much as a condition of reality, a pocket where multiple timelines existed simultaneously, overlapping and contradicting each other. As the distant horizon weaved through its impossible architecture, Dominic saw buildings that were simultaneously intact and ruined, pathways that led everywhere and nowhere. Head for the central spire, Nix instructed, pointing to a towering structure that seemed to flicker between different versions of itself. There's someone there who can help us. Someone you know from another timeline? Dominic asked skeptically, but followed her direction nonetheless. Someone who exists in all timelines. A constant. The pursuing ship maintained its distance, apparently unwilling to fire weapons within the drift itself. Small mercies. Dominic guided the ship toward a docking platform that materialized as they approached. As the airlock sealed against the structure, he felt a slight shift in perception, like the universe had skipped a beat. What was that? He asked, hand instinctively moving to his weapon. Reality adjusting to our presence. The drift recognizes the fragment. They stepped through the airlock into a corridor that defied Euclidean geometry. The walls curved in ways that should have been impossible, meeting at angles that hurt to look at directly. Stay close, Nix warned. It's easy to get lost here, temporally as well as physically. They passed beings of impossible configurations, some humanoid, some utterly alien, and some that seemed to be little more than concepts given temporary form. None paid them particular attention, busy with their own transtemporal affairs. The central chamber was vast, its ceiling lost in a swirling vortex of light and shadow. At its center stood a console that reminded Dominic of an ancient astronomical device, all brass wheels and crystalline spheres in perpetual motion. A figure stood before it, hands moving through the mechanism with practiced precision. It turned as they approached, revealing a face that seemed to shift between male and female, young and old, familiar and strange. The custodian, Nix said with a respectful nod. Nix of the seventh wave, the being replied, voice resonating on multiple frequencies simultaneously. Its gaze shifted to Dominic. And Dominic Nash. You die bravely in many timelines. Hoping to avoid that in this one, Dominic replied dryly. The custodian's attention turned to the fragment in Nix's possession. You bring chaos to my doorstep. We seek sanctuary and guidance, Nix said. The echoes pursue us. Of course they do. The fragment represents everything they oppose: possibility, uncertainty, choice. The custodian gestured to the console. Place it here. Nix hesitated. Can you contain it? No. But I can read its intent. She placed the fragment onto the console. Immediately, the device's components began to spin faster, aligning into new configurations. The fragment pulsed, its inner light growing stronger. Fascinating, the custodian murmured. It's not just a piece of technology, it's alive in a sense. And it remembers. Remembers what? Dominic asked. Everything. Every timeline. Every possibility. It was designed as both recorder and editor of reality. The chamber doors slid open behind them. 3 figures entered, humanoid but with a metallic sheen to their skin, eyes glowing with an unnatural light. They moved with perfect synchronization, as if parts of a single organism. Echoes, Nix whispered. The central echo stepped forward. Surrender the fragment. The proliferation of timelines must end. Unity is the only path to stability. The custodian moved between them and the newcomers. The drift is neutral ground. You know the rules. Rules are constructs of chaotic realities, the echo replied. We seek to implement order. Your kind of order means the death of possibility, Nix countered. The fragment pulsed more intensely, responding to the tension in the room. Images began to form in the air around it, ghostly projections of events from various timelines. Dominic saw himself in some of them, living different lives, making different choices. In one, He stood beside Nyx on what looked like a bridge of a massive starship. In another, he lay dying in her arms. "It's destabilizing," the custodian warned. "The presence of the echoes is triggering a defensive response." The lead echo extended a hand. "It belongs with us. We will ensure it fulfills its true purpose." "And what purpose is that?" Dominic demanded. "Consolidation. One timeline. One reality. Perfect and unchanging." The fragment's pulsing increased, the images around it multiplying and overlapping. The very fabric of the drift seemed to waver. "It needs an anchor," the custodian said urgently to Nyx. "Someone to ground it to a single point of reference across all timelines." Nyx looked at Dominic. "It has to be you." "Me? Why?" "Because in every timeline where the fragment exists, you're connected to it and to me. Different versions of you, but always you." The echoes moved forward in perfect unison. "Stop this now." Dominic looked between Nyx and the fragment, seeing the reflections of countless lives he might have lived: soldier, explorer, criminal, hero. In each one, somehow, he had encountered Nyx and the fragment. "What do I need to do?" he asked. "Touch it," the custodian instructed. "But be warned, you'll experience every version of yourself simultaneously. Most minds cannot withstand it." "Human minds are particularly susceptible to temporal fracturing," the lead echo added, almost sounding concerned. "You will lose yourself." "Don't listen to them," Nyx urged. "I've seen your mind withstand it before." "In another timeline," Dominic reminded her. "In every timeline that matters." The echoes raised their arms, revealing weapons grafted into their forearms. "This ends now. Decision time." Dominic reached for the fragment just as the echoes fired. Time seemed to slow as energy beams crossed the chamber. The custodian gestured, creating a barrier that wouldn't hold for long. Dominic's fingers touched the crystalline surface of the fragment. Reality shattered. He was everywhere and everyone at once. He was a child watching colony ships depart Earth. He was a cadet graduating from the Space Academy. He was a captain leading a desperate charge against alien invaders. He was a fugitive, a hero, a villain, a forgotten relic. And in every version, somehow, he encountered Nyx. Sometimes as an enemy, sometimes as an ally, sometimes as something more. Through the kaleidoscope of lives, a pattern emerged. The fragment, always the fragment, moving through history like a thread connecting disparate events. "Focus." Nyx's voice reached him, though he couldn't tell from which timeline. "Find the constant. Find what remains unchanging across all versions of yourself." Dominic searched through the tempest of memories, looking for the thread that connected all his possible selves. Not his name, which sometimes changed. Not his profession or his loyalties, which varied wildly. Then he found it, a conviction buried deep in every version of himself. A belief in choice, in possibility, in the right of all beings to forge their own paths, even if those paths led to mistakes. He clung to that belief, used it as an anchor amid the storm of potentialities. Slowly, reality began to stabilize around him. The chamber of the drift came back into focus, though now he could see the quantum possibilities shimmering at its edges. The fragment had changed. It no longer swirled with chaotic energy, but pulsed with a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. Dominic realized with a start that it was synchronized with his own. The echoes had been thrown back by some unseen force, their perfect synchronicity disrupted. They picked themselves up, movements now slightly out of alignment with each other. "What have you done?" the lead echo demanded, voice fluctuating between frequencies. "He stabilized it," the custodian explained with something like awe. "He's become the anchor point." Nyx's face showed a mixture of relief and concern. "How do you feel?" Dominic considered the question. He felt expanded, as if his consciousness now existed across multiple planes simultaneously. Yet he remained firmly rooted in the present moment, in this particular timeline. "Like I'm remembering dreams I never had," he answered finally. The lead echo approached cautiously. "This changes nothing. The fragment must be used to unify the timelines. It is the only way to prevent eventual collapse." "No," Dominic said with newfound certainty. The fragment doesn't exist to eliminate timelines. It exists to preserve them, to keep them from bleeding into each other. How can you know this? The echo demanded. Because I'm part of it now. Dominic picked up the fragment, which hummed contentedly in his grasp. And it's part of me. The custodian nodded slowly. He's correct. The fragment was never meant to consolidate reality. It was meant to protect the boundaries between possibilities. Then what is our purpose? Asked one of the other echoes, its voice distinct from the leader's for the first time. The question hung in the air, a crack in their perfect unity. Perhaps, the custodian suggested, to ensure those boundaries remain intact without eliminating the diversity they contain. The lead echo seemed to struggle internally before responding. We will consider this perspective. Nick stepped forward. And you'll stop pursuing us? For now, the echo conceded. But we will be watching. After the echoes departed, the custodian turned to Dominic and Nix. You bought time, but nothing more. The fragment is still dangerous, particularly now that it's bonded to you. What does that mean for me? Dominic asked. You'll experience echoes of your other selves, memories that aren't quite yours, dreams of lives you haven't lived. The custodian's form shifted slightly, and you'll be drawn to nexus points where timelines intersect. Like the drift? Nix asked. Yes, and there are others. Places where reality thins. Dominic looked at the fragment, now seemingly dormant in his hand. So what now? Now, Nix said, we become what we've always been in the timelines that survived, guardians of possibility. And if I don't want that job? She smiled, a gesture both familiar and strange. Based on what I've seen across multiple timelines, you always do, even when you insist you don't. Dominic looked at her with new awareness. In his expanded consciousness, he could see echoes of their shared histories across divergent realities, allies, enemies, strangers, lovers. And how many of those timelines do we succeed? He asked. Enough, she answered simply. As they returned to the distant horizon, Dominic felt the weight of countless possibilities resting on his shoulders. The fragment, now seemingly fused with his consciousness, whispered of dangers and wonders across the multiverse. Where to? He asked as they prepared to depart the drift. Nix looked at him, her expression suggesting she already knew his answer. Wherever the next temporal incursion occurs. The echoes won't be the only ones seeking the fragment. Dominic plotted a course into the unknown, guided by instincts that weren't entirely his own. As the ship pulled away from the drift, reality seemed to ripple around them, not breaking, but acknowledging their passage. You know, he said, and how many timelines do I tell you this was the strangest day of my life? All of them, Nix replied with a smile. And it's only the beginning. The distant horizon accelerated into the void, carrying its crew toward adventures that existed simultaneously across 1,000 potential futures, all of them now possible.